Standing outside the entrance to Cakeland, there isn't anything that would give you the idea of what to expect once you walk through the gate. As you pass through the doorway, you're greeted by a beautiful archway, accented with all kinds of pretty details and flourishes that Scott's work is known for. The first thing that caught my eye was that brilliant cadmium red on the inner part of the arch, almost kind of pulling you toward the entrance. You can see those red flower beds and lanterns on either side of the entrance, kind of complementing that color play. Scott explained that he wanted to do a tribute to the location where the exhibition lives, in Chinatown. As I walked through that archway, Scott explained that Cakeland was filled with a lot of illusions and trapdoors and portals. So this is the first that I came across. It wasn't necessarily a portal as more as it is a non-functioning door. He explained that those are fashion panels hung on the doorway. Fashion panels are kind of like fashion magazines from the 1800s, and Scott loves to collect them. When I first got there, I assumed this beautiful warm hallway was the entrance to Cakeland, but Scott directed me to the black curtain on my left. There was somewhat of an ominous, almost sort of uncomfortable presence from this doorway. You can't see it here, but above the doorway, in icing, it says, "Your life." Scott calls this the ice room. He says it's like a little jail. The ice cave is when you get thrown out into the wilderness, and you have to find your way out. He says there's always got to be some scary stuff that emphasizes the pretty stuff. If everything's just beautiful, it's really boring. The more I started to explore this room and experience the trapdoors and the portals, the more I kept thinking about Scott's message above the door, your life. The Ice Cake Cavern, I think, does a really good job of catching the viewer off guard. You know, it takes you away from this stunningly beautiful and warm, inviting entrance that promises decadence and beauty, and it pushes you into this room that is so dark, frightening, and confusing. Scott says that this room still has a way to go with completion, and he wants it to be richer and have more activation, so the version that you're seeing now is still a work in progress. So here I want to start talking about the trapdoors and portals, which have a pretty significant presence in Cakeland. If you look up, you'll notice that there are gears in the ceiling, and if you stand directly under it, it looks like it goes up about 30 feet, but it doesn't. It almost kind of gives you the sense of vertigo. Scott was really successful with creating these false portals with mirrors that kind of create this illusion. Adjacent to the gears is another false portal inside of a grandfather clock. When you look into the belly of the grandfather clock, you'll see another mirrored illusion that seems to go on forever. But much like the gears, this portal only extends about 16 inches deep. Scott says this is a portal that offers a glimpse into a path that may lead to somewhere beautiful. It looks kind of inviting but disappears into the darkness, so maybe it's terrifying, you don't know. It's the uncertainty that pulls you in. As I'm leaving the room, I'm thinking about the elements of time, the fragility of life, and the mysterious end that may be much closer than you think. This warm yellow room almost instantly put me at ease. This was his BLM Corridor room that was embellished with Rococo icing details all the way up to the sign above the mirror that says BLM for Black Lives Matter. Scott talked a little bit about crafting this during the civil rights movement this past month. He talked about his hope for the future and the next generation that would bring about more peace and equality. This installation was created in the midst of two major global points in history, and I wanted to know more about how that affected his work. One of the reasons I really wanted to show Cakeland is because, you know, I was watching the process of you kind of putting the finishing touches in and getting ready to open up, and then the pandemic hit, and then you were just kind of, this was just kind of sitting here for months on end.
Yes, my opening, I was shut down on the day I was supposed to open.
Yeah.
It coincided perfectly. There was like complete cosmic perfect timing. So the timing was so perfect, in fact, that I realized that there must be a reason. So I was pretty upset. I had a couple emotional times in here, you know, just wondering if anybody was ever going to even see it, and I would just come down here and continue to work. I was able to finish things and make things more beautiful the way I wanted, that it just has more depth now, and also the context we're in now. Not everybody's, people aren't panicking because of this suddenly present coronavirus. Now people are more used to that, and we are also now in this context of this social revolution that is just, it's a brand new sort of social revolution. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. There's a mix of optimism and anger and heightened awareness, and for me this is just a way more exciting time to be launching a meaningful piece of art.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely fine with things being put off than getting shut down before. It's like I have no regrets about it.
I asked him about the craft of this room. It really reminded me of the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles.
I had always wanted to try my hand at Rococo plasterwork, and which is very, very interesting craft that's almost completely gone. And, Rococo has always been a fascinating design style, but it's really hard to wrap your head around because it's asymmetrical and it's really organic. And so I just finally went for it, and this was the perfect place to do it. And I can just keep adding to it if I want, or I can change it because it's an ongoing living project.
Then there was the Ulva Room, or the Galaxy Room. Scott had a lot of different names for this room, and right now it was being called the Love Room. This room is inspired by the Powder Room next to the Ladies' Room inside the Los Angeles Theater on Broadway. It's an old movie palace built around the 1920-1930s era. It has a French Rococo interior and a true portal where you step inside and have an infinity experience. That's Scott's dog, Kona.
Yeah, so you step in and you have a infinity experience. I call it the deprogramming chamber. It's designed for people who are like religious zealots or political zealots, people who are just really kind of a little over the top when it comes to personal beliefs, you know? It's something that can create a state of euphoria that can ideally deprogram you from all that garbage and set you straight using beauty.
The deprogramming chamber was a very overwhelming yet beautiful experience. There were so many different textures and lights and colors that were always changing inside the environment. Something I noticed about this portal is the mirrors actually reflect the viewer directly. In most of the other trapdoors and portals, the mirrors are actually an illusion that never quite reflect the viewer back. The artist is quite literally inviting the viewer to face themselves in this room. And upon exiting this room, you're met with this monstrous face hanging above the birthday cake. It almost kind of felt like this taxidermy cake monster was there to blow out your birthday candles. The exhibition is called The Beauty War, and there was something about this piece in this room that really kind of made that name make sense for me. We made our way back through the yellow Rococo room and went through the curtains into Cakeland itself. The first thing I was drawn to was this little doorway that I assumed to be another portal. In icing above, it says Nick's Cave.
Yeah, I never want to pack the place with too many people because too many bodies block the reflections, you know, and it needs to be a really personal experience. Yeah. At any given time, like I think maximum attendance would be like 50 people throughout the entire village. But
So Nick is Scott's friend. Nick is a dwarf, and Scott explained that anytime Nick would come over, he always got to sleep in the cake installation, so this room was kind of a personal piece for Nick.
Is this another portal?
Mm-hmm. A little mini jungle portal.
This was probably the smallest portal of the entire installation. It was another illusion where you looked inside and saw life, greenery, flowers kind of flourishing in a different dimension outside of Cakeland. I asked him if he had any concerns about his installation being compared to one of those Instagram pop-up museums, and if he was concerned about his viewers having a similar experience as one of those pop-up museums, instead of experiencing the surrounding elements and appreciating them as art instead of, look at me, I'm here, here's my picture. And he said, what you're saying is absolutely true, but why would they highlight the art when there is no art? A lot of these pop-ups call themselves museums, but how are you going to build a museum and somehow forget about the art? He said they have these cookie cutout concepts laid out on a computer that they fabricate. He said, to me, that is not art. I like fussing with the craft, the emotional experience, the depth, the story, the narrative. Those are things that don't exist in pop-ups. And so those pop-ups are pulling a lot of potential art goers, the next generation of people who want to go to museums and check out art and get fed what I consider total junk food. So this is my answer to that, as a way to give somebody more of a meaningful experience. A lot of those places are condescending to their attendees. They don't care who you are or what you think intellectually. They don't consider their viewing experience. They could paint a room pink, and that would be good enough to take the picture. They can do better. So here I am, putting my money where my mouth is, trying to do better.
And I really don't like art that controls your experience, because it has to be, everything has to be suggestive. It can't be explicit. Any explicit art has a very ephemeral or transitory quality. Like political art, I've never been a fan of.
Yeah.
Some political art is classic, but it only serves one purpose. And any artist who tries to control the message or force people to read it the way they want it to be read, it ends up being a failure. It always ends up being a failure. So you have to create hints for people. You have to make it accommodating for people. You have to allow people to have their own experience. It makes me happy knowing that I can create an experience where people can have a personalized experience, where my voice, who I am, my personality is completely out of the picture. I don't want this isn't the Scott show. This is the CAKELAND show. You know, this is the beauty war show. You know, I want people to come through here and just have their own just fantastic experience and have their own discovery, and keep me out of it. You know, so me doing an interview, you know, that can sort of like set my perspective, but you know, I'm not going to be here just like, this is what this is all about. And you know, you don't see any huge paragraphs of text on the walls, because we don't need that here. You know, this is about like magic and like discovery and emotional highs and lows. You know, you have beauty, but then you have terror. You know, we're in CAKELAND, but then you go behind that curtain, there's a hell pit. It's like an infinity of like fire and smoke and bones and arms coming out. You know, like, what does all that mean? I don't know. I'm not going to tell you. You got to figure it out on your own, and you got to just enjoy the experience. You know. So.
Toward the end of our tour of CAKELAND, Scott showed us a room that was very much still a work in progress and unfinished. On either side of the entrance of this room, there were 2 mini CAKELAND sculptures with those famous stripper shoes on the inside. This room was sort of a CAKELAND bedroom. There was a vanity and a beautiful bed that Scott had repurposed to be a very sturdy stage in hopes that maybe there would be performances here in the future. By the time this video is published for the first time, CAKELAND will have been open for a couple days. However, Los Angeles just went back under lockdown under the pandemic order. As we began making our way back toward the entrance of CAKELAND, Scott and I started to talk a lot. Mostly about life, our life path as an artist, and kind of the spiritual experiences that we've had independently that aligned with each other. And I found it really interesting that we're very similar on somewhat of a empathic spiritual level.
Can we talk about what did you call it, attention sickness?
Attention sickness.
Yeah.
So attention sickness is a term that I heard from Mark Ryden. So he's an artist I admire very much, and we had a conversation once, and he was talking about how at his last opening he had what he called attention sickness, where everybody's lined up to talk to the master artist. All the news people want to talk to him, interview after interview. Everybody is like, Mark Ryden's a fucking genius. Dude, you're a genius. Everybody's like lining up to tell him what a genius he is. And then at the end of the day, he would have a sickness, you know? Like you feel sick in your body. Like you feel dehydrated. You feel like your skin hurts, you know? It's a miserable experience, you know? He's a private person, and he doesn't want to, but he has to perform in that capacity as a professional. He has to be at his art openings. He has to be signing the books. I thought that was so great that he had a term for it, the attention sickness. And I realized that I had a same tendency to get attention sickness. So after an opening, or having to be on and having to be all bright, have my good clothes on, and just like, you know, oh, talk to this news person, oh, talk to this famous person, boo, 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 juggle, you know, at the end of the night, oh my God, I want to go home and I want to watch chemistry videos again. You know, like something, look at science videos, nature videos are the best for like sort of like de-stressing around those things. So some people thrive around that. I'm not one of them. I know that I can't escape that to some degree, being a public person doing public art, but I've over the years developed ways to sort of protect myself and my psyche around that, you know. It's easy to sort of like have emotional breakdowns if you have no defense against these circumstances.
And when you first told me about that, it was so validating that I felt myself get emotional. I almost kind of teared up.
As someone who sounds like you had attention sickness.
It's almost like getting drunk. You do it to yourself, and it feels good, and you're so high off of all that attention, and then afterward you're just depleted, and you don't really know why, and I never really knew why.
It's like a spiritual depletion.
It really is.
Yeah, it's a spiritual depletion.